right, so I call to order the Special Assembly Committee on Housing and Homelessness. Let's go ahead and do introductions, starting with folks in person, and then we'll go to any assembly members on the phone. So in person, start on this side. Felix Rivera.
Suzanne LaFrance.
All right, and then do we have any assembly members on the phone?
Cameron Perez.
I'm here too, Mr. Rivera, Mr. Chair, Ms. Austin, and Davis.
Great, thank you, Mr. Perez-Verdia. Thank you, Ms. Quinn Davidson. Any other members on the phone? Okay. Great, so then we'll go ahead and move on to initial audience participation. So folks have to sign up in advance for this portion of our agenda. We will have final audience participation at the end of the meeting, time allowed. We did have one individual signed up, Mr. Oliva. You will have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, Felix, can you hear me?
No.
No?
No.
How about now?
No.
I'm pushing all the buttons.
Is it green now?
It's the green button.
Green now.
I don't want to push your buttons. I just want to
It's the green button, Mr. Oliva.
Can you hear me?
No.
Okay.
There it is.
Did I get it?
Yes.
I put a piece of yellow tape with an arrow here to say hi, Mr. Haberman. My name is Ron Oliva, 49-year resident. I think you're familiar with my background. But I'm here today to ask for an ordinance to secure the $250,000 remaining on the balance of a purchase of my property where Robin Ward, Pam Weiss, and I have to say Mayor Berkowitz said they'd make it up on the next purchase. Well, the next purchase kind of went south because of cash flow and financial issues, but I would like to sell my property and convert it into Bindle Stick Park. They did a study, $50,000, so it's all been approved by the neighbors, the Third Avenue Radicals, and including the Fairview Community Council as a location. If you look at the photos, unfortunately, it starts off with a for sale real property. And if you go through it, I owe legal fees of $266,000, and because of damages of 2 trees I cut down on my driveway easement, and you see the picture, it's a beetle kill spruce. If you look at it, I cut that tree 5 years later because the tree next to it fell on my house. It also, if you look at the next picture, unfortunately, the end of Carlos Street, there was a big drainage problem. I have a dip in the road, and that's what caused the water to go over the roots and destabilize the trees. The mayday was split down the middle as an invasive species. That got appraised at $20,000 and triple damages. So I'm out of cash. And I think I've been very resilient the last 5 years through COVID and employees, etc. But what I'm offering is, the next picture, if you look at it, is a dumpster. Now, these dumpsters are surplus from solid waste, but they can be desanitized and painted, and it will fit a stack of bunk or a little gurney. And so you have your sleeping area, you have water, you have cold storage, you have something that you keep your clothes in, if necessary, a honey bucket. But the trick to this is the lids fall down and get secured. So on my property, if you go to the next picture where it shows a lot of tires, those units there, as far as mini shelters, I went to the internet YouTube university professor in Texas, actually lived in a dumpster for a whole year. But those also can be made into shelters.
Apologies, Mr. Oliva. Your time is up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were giving me a warning.
Well, my apologies, your time is up, but if you want to wrap up your
Oh,
statement.
no, I'm on the last page that these dumpsters are
Okay.
surplus.
I'll give you like a few more sentences, okay?
Are in surplus, and I'd be more than happy to expand on the mini shelters using cottage industries such as a small lumber mill with the dead pines, and then bike repair station, and then car detail. And you're getting people to live, work, train, and the navigation center is right next door. I believe Dean's is going to have it. So I think this is a viable program, and the cost is very minimal versus the fire hazard in safety. So if there are any questions, and if you can write me a check, I'd really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Leva. I do not see any questions.
Are you sure?
Yes.
10 seconds to think of a question. If you'd like to check, Mr. Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Leva. We gotta get moving on.
Okay. Stay safe.
All right, so that completes initial audience participation. So next we have the business item of our agenda. First, I just want to note for the record that we've been joined by Mr. Solt, and then is there any other assembly members on the line that have joined us? Are there? Okay. All right, so for folks both in person and on the phone, if you could either, if you're in person, flag me or text me if you want to get in the queue. If you're on the phone, please text me if you want to get in the queue. All right, so thank you to my colleagues and members of the administration for attending this special committee meeting. Before we begin, I just wanted to take a minute or two to clear up any confusion as to why this committee meeting was scheduled and talk about my expectations for this meeting. On Friday, January 24th, after learning from a constituent that the administration was planning on opening Centennial Campground as a sanctioned campground, I began organizing this committee meeting. The notice for this meeting went out to the list, which includes many members of the administration, at 10:47 a.m. on January 24th, and I sent a personal invitation for this committee meeting to the administration, specifically the managing department of the mass care closure, the English Health Department, at 11:05 a.m. on the 24th. Later that same day, the Assembly did receive confirmation from the municipal manager at 6:45 p.m. after receiving questions from some Assembly members that the administration was planning on using Centennial Campground as a sanctioned campground. We are here today to discuss not just the sanctioned campground, but the work being done with regard to the planned mass care closure on July 1st. There are many moving parts and much work to be done over the next 48 hours. This meeting is primarily meant as a fact-finding exercise to understand the current status of mass care closure, the work plan for the next 2 days through July 1st, contingencies the administration has in place going forward, and the status of camp abatement. There's one item on the agenda, quote, mass care closure, camp abatement, sanctioned campground or grounds, end quote. I'll be breaking this agenda item down into 4 parts. 1, congregate mass care closure. 2, non-congregate mass care closure. 3, camp abatement. And 4, sanctioned campgrounds. I will begin each section of this outline with a few questions to open up the discussion before going to other members. And just for folks on the phone, please make sure that you're muted. We're hearing a little bit of background. I'd like to state the limited facts as I understand them for the benefit of the public and the members. The municipality's data dashboard shows that as of June 28, 2022, that there are 129 occupants in congregate mass care and 223 occupants in non-congregate mass care, for a total of 352 occupants. The Anchor Coalition to End Homelessness estimates that at the Sullivan Arena, the congregate mass care site, 73 people have nowhere to go come July 1st. Yesterday, the administration provided transportation for individuals from the Sullivan Arena to Centennial Campground. That's it. I hope we get to learn a lot more during today's committee so we can understand how the administration plans to manage this very human issue we have looming before us. And I want to be perfectly clear here. This is what I'm interested in getting out of today, an understanding of how we as a city and you as an administration will be treating the most vulnerable among us as you close down mass care operations. With that, let's start this discussion with a quick overview of a resource put together by the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness, a system capacity map that tells the story of the current available resources within our community. I thought this would be a good way for us to start, and then we'll move on from there to the 4 items that I outlined earlier. So with that, I'll ask the representative from the coalition to come up, and then Mr. Turner, if we can, there we go. This is also up on the committee's website. If you go to muni.org/assembly, you'll go to our committee page. You will find this resource on there. Also want to note for the record that we've been joined by Ms. Allard, and if there are any other members on the phone that have joined us, please text me and I'll recognize you. Go ahead, Ms. Ware.
Hello, I am Taria Ware, the Systems, I feel like that's really loud. Okay. The Systems Improvement Administrator for the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness. We, with the wonderful service providers, were able to put together a system app. The reason why we did this is because of the misinformation that was going out into the community. We wanted to make sure that we were getting good referrals instead of bad referrals. A bad referral can really re-traumatize those that are experiencing homelessness. So we as service providers, or I can say service providers in ACH, can have a clearer understanding of what our providers have available in their capacity, then that story can be told to those experiencing homelessness. I'm going to give a brief overview as the chair has asked. So if you're seeing notes, because I love the color pink, they're not everything that we're going to talk about, but just making sure we go through it. All of these numbers that you see here are iterative. We are actually asking for updates 3 times a week and then putting that out to everyone, so everyone has the same message. The message that we gathered together from shelter leadership, which includes all members of HPRS, was that there is currently no capacity in our homeless prevention and response system, which is HPRS. So if you are seeking shelter, especially as a family, tonight there is nowhere for you to go. So our encouragement is to stay with someone you can trust and then actually call 211 the next day. Our shelter capacity can change daily, it can change hourly, so we just want to make sure we're getting the right story. So the Sullivan numbers, and this is updated this morning, we're getting directly from the dashboard, and they do, like you said, definitely change. It has also been made a little bit more difficult when we first found out that we could do intakes into the shelter, into the Sullivan for unsheltered folks, those with medical discharges and public safety transfer clients. Previously, that was not what was said. It was actually said that there were no intakes as of May 31st at 10 p.m. So that on 6/24, that was a change. And then you will see some fluctuations where things kind of move up and down with the census. The health department has been actively moving people out of that location to the Aviator. We do know that. And we are looking, ACH has lots of staff on hand, service providers are there. One of our asks, and our ask to bring here, is we really want to see on the last day those that have de-escalation techniques, either the MIT team or the CERT team. We know that this losing their housing is going to be another traumatizing event. Emotions are already high at the sites. If you're going there, people are worried, they are wondering what is going to happen to them. Having someone else come in that might not be trained when they're removing people from that site could also end in criminalization of that person. And we are very concerned, especially with the amount of BIPOC individuals that are in the Sullivan Arena. So as we move forward to the Aviator, lots of wonderful work has been happening. And the really great thing about the Aviator is that we are still having great communication with Rob with the health department on a daily basis, if not a couple times a day, to make sure those rooms are being filled. One of the questions I believe people are asking is on the dashboard, it says there are 28 rooms available. Yes, and because of staffing requirements, you can only get 225 individuals into that facility. So you will have some open rooms because you can't fit, because you have a 225 cap pretty much. So you will see some open rooms there. But they are working on putting people in those rooms, and I believe that you will see it as full as it can be before tomorrow. The other ask is not to make sure that we're continuing to plan. And as we're looking forward to, de-escalate or decompressing the Sullivan, recognizing that collaboration and partnership is what actually worked when we decompressed the Sockeye, the Alex, and the guest house. That was with lots of communication, which we have not seen at the Sullivan, and what we are asking for and continue to ask for. If we're moving to the next page, I believe, or no, it's still your page, Centennial Campground. So we still don't know what the total capacity is. We don't know what the capacity is, how long they can stay there. We do know that food will not be provided. We have seen lots of providers there providing food. I know that Beans Cafe went there, United Way, and ACH was there yesterday providing food for those that are at Centennial Campgrounds. But if we can have how long they're there, then we can start planning what the next steps are. If you're talking to people at the campgrounds and you know their concern is, yes, this is wonderful, and what happens when it ends? So what is our next step? Because we need to be thinking about that now. It says here approximately 73 persons will be going into unsheltered homelessness on July 1st. With the recent census, I'm going to tell you that's going to increase. If the census now is 119 folks, I'm pretty sure we won't get to 73 by tomorrow at 10 a.m. So you will see a higher number tomorrow being unsheltered than what we predicted here originally. So, and this does not account for inflow. So there are several numbers. If you keep scrolling down so they can see the same thing. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. So the inflow, it matches here, saying for March, April, and May what the inflow is for all populations. So the unsheltered number, which we know is more than 273, doesn't account for any of new inflow. I just want to make sure that we understand that. And then also, if the funding for the guest house doesn't come on in time, which is the August 31st deadline, then we will see another 130 plus individuals on the street experiencing homelessness. So we want to make sure that we're working with the administration to make sure that we secure the funding so that we don't see more homelessness in our community. The rest of this, or this section of established shelters, this is exactly from the providers. So if we scroll down, yeah, there we go. Established shelters. So when we're looking at Brother Francis, we want to be very clear that when we're saying that it's 76 out of 76, it means it's full. No one should be referring someone experiencing homelessness to these areas. If you are referring them, then you are creating an expectation that is actually detrimental to not only their health and well-being, but the staff of those facilities who have to interact with them. Because now they're receiving mixed messages. I've spent over 15 years in direct service with the homeless population, and I am telling you that that is not a wonderful conversation to have with someone when, well, Bobby told me I could come here, and you're the person telling them they can't stay there. And also at the same time telling them there is nowhere else for you to go. Because that is the conversation our direct service providers are having with each and every single homeless person. So I want to make it really clear, because I know a lot of folks in the room have not had to have that conversation. It is a hard conversation. We have staff members who are crying. We have staff members who are upset. We have staff members who don't know what else to do because there truly is nothing else to tell that person. But if we have someone else promising things that are untrue, it creates even more anxiety and stress for that person who does not have a home to go to. And I would say that the majority of us in this room have somewhere to sleep, and I try to think about myself and my children, and what would that feel like if I truly had nowhere to go, and someone is telling me, just come back tomorrow, you'll have somewhere. That is not the case here. These areas are closed. They have no capacity. Now, maybe tomorrow, if it changes, somebody will get housed. I know yesterday we housed 2 people over at the Aviator. Wonderful. So again, it changes, but please make sure we are telling them the truth, which is there is no capacity. I'll continue to go down. The next section are, thank you. Specialized shelters for youth and family services. Again, if you're trying, even though we normally focus on adults over the age of 25 that are experiencing homelessness that don't have children, we wanted to make sure that our HPRS had the full picture here, so we included other services, including families and Covenant House, which are youth ages 20 and under, or up to 24. So this is, and as you can see, everyone is full. And we'll keep going. Transitional housing programs. Just to clarify again, the guest house is full. And I know that the health department has been working actively to fill up the Henry House. So, and this is as of what we know today. So if there's something that happens later, wonderful. But there are other places here. So we, hopefully at some point, there's like a nice dashboard that has all this great information, but for now, it'll just keep living every 3 days. You can keep scrolling. And then another thing that we were talking about was where can people go for permanent housing options? We get a lot of folks who ask, where can I apply to even be on a wait list? Here are various places that we know are affordable for those experiencing homelessness, or even make some accommodations as far as criminal backgrounds or credit ratings for them to stay. So that's here too. I want to continue to scroll, and this is independent, identified, available units. You have asked us as ACH to come forward with barriers and challenges. Units ready for occupancy. We all talk about affordable units. We have found a plethora, actually, over 30 units that landlords have said, we just need to renovate them and you can have them. You can have them for someone experiencing homelessness. Unfortunately, I don't have the funds to do so. And LHP, which is Landlord Housing Partnership, has been doing this work. They have been giving at least $2,500 for each unit to renovate. But when you have landlords that need, carpet, paint, etc., and also being a property manager for 6 years, you're locking the unit, this is like $7,000 or $8,000 of work. But $7,000 or $8,000 for someone to stay in a permanent housing unit is actually something that is doable. But we do need the funding. So I wanted to identify that one because it's new to our system map, and then understand why we put that on here. We go back to this $900,000 in rental assistance, which was delayed, and it did cause, a diversion in the system. But we have heard that it's going to be released and have already identified 10 people. So that is 10 units, not 10 people, sorry, 10 units for these funds to be discriminated to. And as I close, because I know that we have a lot of other things to get to, I want to say as we're looking at the Downtown Hope Center and really being thankful for them taking on a huge burden of extra showers and meals and persons as we close down Sullivan, they are going there, and it has been an impact to the downtown community, and so we just want to say thank you for that. And my last part is on the outstanding policy questions. These are questions that we still have unanswered. And what is mind-boggling to me is we have had a pretty great rapport, and you've heard me report this here with the health department, that we have been collaborating to close down several sites. But when it has come to the Sullivan, we have emailed and not been answered. We've asked for conversations, and the conversations have not happened. But I'm telling you, when it was the sockeye, the guest house, the Alex, magic occurred when we actually had a clear partnership. I personally want that partnership back. I have been asking and want to be at that table so we can plan now. And if the assembly does decide to increase or extend the aviator of 90 days, we need to start that work now. We need to do it together. So that is my last point on our HPRS system, and I hope that that helps everyone.
Great, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and pause, see if folks have any questions. I do have one individual in the queue, Mr. Solt.
So real quick, the Covenant House, I know they had a ribbon cutting Thursday last week. So if you know their capacity, it's for youth, it's probably fairly open, or?
Yeah, so actually they are accepting referrals, but because of staffing, just like everyone else, it's not open yet. But we are encouraging people to accept those referrals,
okay,
or putting those referrals.
Good. And then the $900,000 for rent assistance, when is that available? Like, if someone's seeking shopping for a house, how quickly would that take place?
So as of this moment, the entity that was granted that funding pot doesn't have capital, so they're waiting for that check to be cut. The administration has stated it's coming. So as soon as they have that, they can start cutting the checks. They are starting outreach actually at the Sullivan and in the camps to see if we can't get people to already be in line for those units.
Okay, good. And one more. On the Sullivan, so there's roughly 70 people looking for housing still. So come July 1st, should they not be able to provide housing, it's my understanding they can't be displaced. Is that correct?
Can you clarify your question a little bit more? And we'll say up to 70 plus. Yeah.
If the municipality cannot provide housing for these individuals or a place to go, then we're not allowed to shut down the Sullivan.
I'm not the expert in that section, so I will divert that to someone else.
Through the chair, Mr. Soul, the Sullivan may be shut down.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. LaFrance?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Ware, for the information and for being here today. Just a couple of clarifying questions. You did mention regarding intakes at the Sullivan. Was there a change then, June 24th, to take in additional individuals? Is that what you said?
Correct. We were not actually handed that memo, but we were given to it. We were given access to it by a service provider, and it was different from what we were being told in May 27th, which is there were no intakes to happen as of May 31st at 10 p.m. So the census should have only went down and not up. So those coming to the Sullivan were actually turned away and told that they could not intake there. And also at the Aviator, there was no intakes either.
Got it, thank you. And then the other clarifying question, you did mention that it might appear that there are more rooms available than actually are, and is that due to a lack of staffing?
No, not the lack of staffing. My understanding, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is the contract states that there can be up to 200 or 225 or 250 individuals, somewhere in around there. So you have more rooms because we have families that are actually staying there that have a larger amount of people. So you don't have one individual in each room, so your capacity is taken up there.
Okay, got it. It's a capacity
yes.
limit issue.
Not a room issue. Correct.
Right. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I have Mr. Perez-Verdia and then Mr. Constant.
Hi, just a few questions. You mentioned there was a delay in $900,000 for rental systems. What was the cause of that delay?
To my knowledge, sir, the cause was that it was vetoed after the assembly granted it. And I'm sorry, I don't have the right language for that.
Thank you. And at the last assembly meeting, the mayor said that he was and his administration were actively collaborating with all community partners to ensure that everyone had services they needed: food, medical care, water, etc. And that there was active communication and collaboration around this. But what I understand is that not the case. Is that true?
I really couldn't understand you. I'm sorry.
My question, I'm sorry if it's not clear. My question was, at a recent assembly meeting, the mayor said that he was actively collaborating, his team is collaborating, the health department, his team, with all of the community partners to ensure that the transition out of the Sullivan is done in an effective way, and that everyone will be provided with the services, whether it's medical or food or health care. And what I'm hearing from you is that there is not that level of communication and collaboration. Is that correct?
Yes, and sorry, it wasn't you not being clear. There's some feedback on your end. But yes, so it has not been, have not had that level of collaboration since 6/1. We have previously had it, and we have been doing great work together. But yes, since June 1st, we have not had that collaboration.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I have two more folks in the queue, and then I want us to move on. So, Mr. Constant?
Thank you. There was an assertion made by the municipal manager that all of the elements are in place that we may shut down the Sullivan Arena, which is an implication that implies that we have shelter for all of these people to go to. And so I want to state on the record that it is the opinion of the administration and not necessarily the assembly. The capacity is there that allows for the shutdown for a place for people to go. And the fact remains that once this is adjudicated, this question, until this is adjudicated, this question won't be answered squarely. It is my opinion that the shutdown of the Sullivan Arena, without standing up additional shelter, when we have what's clearly individuals who don't have a place to go, and we're telling them you may camp, does not meet the standard of the Martin B. Boise case, and is in fact immoral.
Thank you. All right, we're almost there to the point where we are going to be able to ask the administration questions. So next I have Ms. Allard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you've been referring to the Sullivan Arena as a shelter. Is that accurate to say?
It's a non-congregation permanent emergency shelter.
Okay, it's not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to Mrs. Domboski, if we could, for her to explain the actual definition and why we initially opened up the Sullivan Arena.
Through the chair, Assemblymember Allard, I appreciate the opportunity to clarify for the record Mr. Constance's comments of what I said. What I said was the Sullivan may be closed. That's all I said. What the Sullivan Arena is a COVID-19 response to a pandemic. It is not a homeless shelter. It is a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm going to refer to Chief of Staff Alexis Johnson for additional comments.
Through the chair to the Jamie Howard. So what Ms. Domboski said was that this is a FEMA response, and saying anything other than that this is a COVID-19 FEMA response could jeopardize some funding, because they are not funding a homeless shelter, they are funding a FEMA response. So this is a COVID-19 pandemic FEMA response shelter.
Mr. Chair, can I do a follow-up, please?
Sure, briefly.
Thank you. So when you're saying that it's a response, and I apologize, you were correct on the emergency part, I apologize. In regards to it being a FEMA response, because we know it was due to the pandemic, and we were trying to extend that, we are already out of approximately $80 million. So you're saying that this could actually, by extending it for more than that, could cost the taxpayers more money?
Through the chair to Assemblymember Allard, as of July 1st, the cost shift of 100% FEMA reimbursement goes to a 90-10 split. And so, with that being said, $84 million is still has not been reimbursed. It has been filed. Obviously, there is some follow-up with the federal government. They asked a lot of questions, and so we're still awaiting reimbursement for roughly $80 to $84 million.
Thank you. All right, I think we are done. Thank you, Ms. Ware. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on then to the four main portions of our agenda today, starting with the Sullivan, and we've already started that discussion. So, like I said, I'm going to have a few questions to begin the discussion, and then other members can get in the queue. So, regarding our congregate mass care facility, to the administration, and thank you to both the municipal manager and the Mayor's Chief of Staff for attending today. Can you tell me about the current work being done to close the Sullivan Arena as a congregate mass care site and find people alternate placement?
Thank you. I will start, and Alexis, as always, will be more articulate than I'm sure. The Health Department Director has provided me with a number of talking points here today, just to give you some updated numbers and information. AHD is working nearly 24/7 to provide remaining clients with as many possible options. Staff have spent considerable time and effort to talk to every single client at the Sullivan Arena, provided 30, 15, and 7-day notices urging clients to take case management, ensured that every client has a resource guide. Department Operations Center, Child Care Licensing, and the Public Health Nursing staff have interviewed over 110 clients over the past week to diagnose case management issues. The results, about 25% are not interested in assistance, and many others are interested but have not been proactively engaged by case managers. Nearly every client reported poor to zero communication with case managers after being put on various waiting lists. It's very clear from our impromptu case management efforts that there's a lack of beds. There's not a lack of beds. There's a lack of proactive case management. So let me just repeat that because I butchered it a little. It's very clear from our own impromptu case management efforts that there's not a lack of beds. There's a lack of proactive case management. The Anchorage Health Department has been conducting emergency case management to try to fill this gap, working with partners like Catholic Social Services to ensure medically fragile individuals find shelter. We now have a small fleet of vans and buses that AHD staff are operating to get people to the Aviator, the Anchorage Gospel Rescue Mission, and other locations around Anchorage. Some of our community partners have demonstrated some creative solutions. The Salvation Army is offering tents at no cost to clients opting to legally camp at Centennial Campground. What what happens on Thursday, what I was told is this morning there was 111 people in the facility this morning, and by Thursday they're expected 50 to 75 to exit the facility. Remaining clients are aware of their options, they're aware of shelter locations, and aware of food distribution locations. We can only continue to make clients aware of their options. We cannot make the decisions for them or decide where they choose to go. As was stated earlier, I think pretty eloquently, the 111 number is a number that fluctuates because we have been allowing people to come back into the Sullivan at different points over the past 30 days. I think it's important to give some perspective. Originally, this FEMA response location held over 500 clients at one point. Nearly 400 clients have found housing thanks to Sullivan operations since last fall. A couple of months ago, closing the facility with only 50 to 75 clients remaining would have been unthinkable. This is a testament to everyone's hard work, including our community partners, and we want to say a sincere thank you to each of those who have come beside us during this difficult time. We now have hundreds of additional beds in Anchorage, 130 rooms at the guest house, 83 beds for complex care at the Sockeye, another 80 what does the W mean? This right here. What is this? Workforce housing. Thank you. 80 beds of workforce housing at the Aviator and 225 temporary rooms at the Aviator. Coming soon, there will be 62 treatment beds at the Salvation Army, 150 beds at our navigation center this fall, and a new privately run navigation center next summer. Homelessness will not end on July 1st, but historic progress has been made. With that, I will turn it over to Chief of Staff Johnson for closing comments.
Through the chair, I just want to add a few things. So with the closure of the Sullivan, we know as of today that there were 111 people still there as of this morning. We have spoken to all 111 of them and asked where they want to go, what they want to do, and client choice is a huge thing, and Ms. Ware is here to attest to that. We talk about it quite often. Some people just do not want to be sheltered anywhere besides the Sullivan Arena. They refuse case management. They just want to be left alone and have a place to stay. So the option for Centennial Campground with the Tents of the Salvation Army, we have offered the best resources that we can to the remaining 111 clients. And at the end of the day, there's no legal case for us to move them somewhere where they don't want to be. Sorry about that. And so we are working diligently with our partners to make sure that they know their options. But at the end of the day, it's their decision how they want to live their life and what they want to do with those options. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So before I go through the queue, I just wanted to clarify one thing on the numbers. So you said 111 people in the Sullivan as of this morning. How many people do you expect to be moving out tomorrow morning into placement?
I can get that answer for you.
Was that not a number that was stated? I thought Ms. Dombowski stated that number.
Well, they were saying right here, 111 in the facility this morning, 50 to 70 expected to exit the facility on Thursday. Obviously today's Wednesday, but the numbers, as I said, it's a little deceptive because they ebb and flow with just the moving population.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the queue, starting with Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, to the municipal manager, you stated that it's not a lack of beds, it's a lack of case management. And I'm sort of wondering, that doesn't seem to correlate to what the Coalition to End Homelessness stated about the capacity and the number of unsheltered people we have. So I guess my question is, where are those beds exactly? And does your calculation of beds include Centennial Campground?
Through the chair, Mr. Dunbar, this is Chief of Staff Johnson. So we do have some available beds, but unfortunately they are high barrier. They do have some requirements, such as being sober when entering the facility, not bringing any kind of paraphernalia onto the campus. So there is available shelter beds, but they do require referrals for case management. Sometimes there's barriers for people. So I don't want to say that there's available beds for every person as of right now, because we know that the shelter capacity is strained in the city, but there are available beds for people who can go into high barrier scenarios.
Okay.
So follow up on your second question, Mr. Dunbar, no, Centennial Campground is not counted in the sheltering number.
Okay. I guess I'm just trying to reconcile the statements from the administration about there not being a lack of beds. Even if you take out the 30 or include the 30 high barrier beds at the Gospel Rescue Mission, for example, with the data that the coalition is presenting, that appears to show that there are a lot more people than available beds. And it seems like the gap is being closed by Centennial Campground, at least in the next 14 days. But we will, I think we'll have a longer conversation about that at the next topic. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Perez-Padilla?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Dunbar asked my first question. I just want to make a statement about that, and I believe it's pretty disingenuous of the administration to state publicly that there are beds available when they know they're high barrier beds, and the majority of the people that are looking for beds right now won't be able to access those. My first question really is, you mentioned the guest house and that will soon be online. Can you tell us exactly where that funding from the administration is coming from and when we can see that move forward?
Through the chair, Mr. Perez-Padilla, are you talking about the current $1.9 million for transitional housing at the guest house or the purchase of the guest house moving forward?
I'm talking about the purchase of the guest house moving forward.
Through the chair, Mr. Perez-Padilla, currently we have allocated or committed, I should say, to home art funds for the purchase of the guest house. I don't believe they've met their full capital stack yet, but we are working with Rasmussen Foundation to hopefully aid in that purchase. I believe we've committed roughly $3 million to that capital stack.
With 3.4 million you committed, where is that funding coming from, and when will we know that it's going to move forward?
Through the chair, Mr. Perez-Padilla, that funding stack, I believe, is home art dollars that were committed. There is a process that's underway for that. I believe there's like a 30-day notice, and then I believe it's illegal right now, and we've been in works with that, and it's been committed to that.
I will just say that I'm concerned about that answer. I know that this has been in conversation since January, and that there has been expressed statements from the administration saying that that money is not available. And I appreciate that now it seems like it is available, but I would really appreciate if we could know as soon as possible exactly when that money is going to move forward and if it's going to be our money or not. My last question is what I continue to hear is that the administration is working with their partners and communicating and collaborating and to claim the numbers of all the people that have been housed out of the Soho Arena. But what we're hearing from the majority of the community partners is that there is absolutely no communication, there is no collaboration, and there is a stonewall going on. And so what I'm confused about is why the narrative of the administration continues to be that we're working with our partners collaboratively to address the issue at hand, when what we're hearing from most of the community partners is that that is not the fact. Can you please help us to reconcile that?
Through the chair, Mr. Perez-Padilla. So first I want to address the home art scenario. We did have some legal challenges that we faced in the initial commitment to that. We did have both lawyers from both sides work through it, and we believe that we found a path forward. So that is moving at a pace that we believe is going to help facilitate the purchase of that. Secondly, working with partners, with the transition, especially with Centennial opening up and the Sullivan Arena being downgraded, I believe we've been working diligently with some partners, other partners we've been having mild communications with, but I believe we are on the right track to demote the Sullivan. Unfortunately, there is not enough shelter capacity, and we also do have clients that are refusing to go other places, and so it's their choice at the end of the day, and if they don't want to seek shelter, they don't have a place to go, and they just want to go camp, that is their legal right to do so at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just close my statement saying that there is still a pretty large gap between what we're hearing from the community partners from the administration and what we still yet to see is a clear coordinated plan for how this work is going to be done effectively. And so I hope that the $3.4 million for the guest house does come forward as is promised. And I hope that the communication and collaboration between the administration and all of our community partners improves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Constant?
Thank you. I have two questions. The first one directed to the municipal manager. Can you please repeat to us the list of sites and beds available that you've read? So I can make sure to capture that since I don't have it correct.
I think you're referring to since the beginning of this adventure, or effort, I should say, excuse me, since the beginning of this effort, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
the historic work.
You went through a list of a number of beds.
The reference from the health department was these are all the different locations where we're searching for. I'll just read them. We now have hundreds of additional beds in Anchorage, 130 rooms at the guest house, 83 beds of complex care at the Sockeye, 80 workforce housing at the Aviator, and 225 rooms at the Aviator. Coming soon, 62 treatment beds at the Salvation Army, 150 beds at our new navigation center this fall, and a new privately run navigation center next summer.
Thank you. So, Ms. Ware, could you come up? Thank you. So, of all of those sites that were just listed, do we have capacity listed on the document that you shared with us for each of those?
There currently is no capacity at any of those sites.
You're right, except for the 30 at the rescue, Guswell Rescue.
Correct, and also I'll include the upcoming, she said upcoming substance abuse beds. So those are upcoming, so I'm sure those are open.
Okay, thank you. So for my part, I'm still trying to square the message that there are beds, there's just not case management. And that the administration has decided that they're the best tool to step into the breach and solve that problem, which I strongly support that we do need case management. But I cannot yet grasp where those beds exist. And so I do appreciate the Chief of Staff's comment that unfortunately there isn't enough capacity. That actually rings true to me as opposed to there are beds. And so I am very concerned. Again, I have neighbors now shouting at me that we need to abate all of the camps that are popping up across the neighborhood. And functionally, we're at risk now with the Boise Martin case because if we are abating and engaging, which is of course the next topic, and we do not have capacity, I believe we're in violation. And what I hear now loud and clear is, unfortunately, there isn't enough capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, one more person in the queue, and I'd like us to move on. Ms. Allard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I didn't know if the administration knew this, and you might want to add this to their numbers of available beds. But there will be 28 three-bedroom units available with Revive. Those will become available October, November, and that is with phase 1. I don't have the information what's going to come forward with phase 2, but I can't get that for the public, the assembly, and the administration. I would also like to throw in that's a high barrier unit, so there will be rules that they need to follow as far as being clean and sober.
Thank you. All right, next, and then hopefully we can move on after that, is Ms. LaFrance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, may I start with a quick question to Ms. Allard in regards to the Revive Alaska project, are you referring to the Independence Park Comfort Homes for Veterans and Seniors proposed project?
Yes, I am. Those are for individuals that do not have proper housing.
Thank you. So my two questions, one on the guest house. In terms of the home ARPA funds, it's my understanding, this is to the administration, that those funds would need to be appropriated by the end of July. And while $3.4 million is a large sum, since it is a grant, it may not be required to have a public hearing, although many of us would suggest that's advisable. That would mean that the items would need to be submitted for the agenda of the July 12th meeting. The deadline is tomorrow for the regular agenda. The deadline for the addendum is the following Thursday. So I would ask that the administration consider those deadlines unless you're preparing to ask the Assembly for a special meeting. And then my question has to do with the Sullivan Arena, which through the months we have continued to refer to it as a mass care facility that was in fact stood up in response to COVID and has been providing emergency shelter. And given the discussion concerning the definition of the Sullivan Arena, if it is not being referred to as emergency shelter, then can any, I'm just curious because I thought those beds at the Sullivan were being counted as available shelter to enable the municipality to proceed with camp abatement. So I'm a little bit confused on that point. Thank you.
Through the chair to Assemblymember LaFrance. The home ARP, what I'm being told is that we do have to have a public meeting, but I believe it's 15 days notice. I don't have the full view of the home ARP funds and all that. That's over at AHD, so I can get you some clarification on that. As far as using the Sullivan as grounds for abatements, yes, it was a FEMA response shelter, but it is not just a homeless shelter, and now that we're downgrading our FEMA response, it's not being, or it was never utilized as a full homeless shelter. It was stood up for COVID-19, not for homelessness.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I might quibble on that, but I won't.
Thank you, Ms. LaFrance. All right, I don't see anyone else in the queue, so I'm going to go ahead and move us on to our next topic, which is non-congregate mass care site closure. And then after that, we're going to do camp abatement and then sanctioned campgrounds. Okay, so on the non-congregate mass care site, can you tell me about, to the administration, about the current work being done to close the non-congregate mass care site and to find people alternate placement? Or the alternate version of that question, can you tell me about the current work being done to extend the non-congregate mass care site? And if so, what are those plans? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, I appreciate it. Unfortunately, I do not have that information at my fingertips, but I'm happy to get back with you.
Okay, so as I understand it, there are currently 223 occupants in our non-congregate mass care facility. Is that correct?
I believe that. Through the chair, I believe that's the number from this morning.
Okay, so what is going to happen with those 223 individuals come July 1st?
So I believe that we are going to be requesting additional funding to extend that for an uncertain period of time.
So are you going to be requesting that funding when from us? From the Assembly, I assume, is who you're requesting the funding from?
Yes,
okay.
Through the chair. I think we put it forward last week, and then it had a public hearing set for July 12th, and they're operating under good faith that we will look to extend.
Okay, thank you. So I just did confer with the committee vice chair, and thank you for those details.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so are there any other questions regarding our non-congregate mass care facility? Otherwise, that agenda item will be back before us at our next meeting. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Constant.
Thank you. I haven't had a chance to speak with the ownership of Aviator. They have said they would be closing that and going into construction. Do we know now what the timeline is for the Aviator to maintain its position as a non-congregate site?
I do not have those details for you through the chair, Mr. Constant. I'm sorry, I do not have those details for you at this time, but I can definitely give them to you probably within the hour.
Thanks. Yeah, I just know they were planning to close by March or May, and so it definitely is outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, not seeing anyone else, so we'll move on to our next topic regarding camp abatement. So I have a few questions to get us started, and then folks can get in the queue. Just want to pause really quick. Mr. President, is your question regarding non-congregate?
Yeah, it's part of the last conversation that was just had. What I'm confused about is the number of questions that the two members of administration here are unable to answer. And my question is, who is leading the efforts around homelessness for the administration? Who is your point person who is coordinating and collaborating within the administration and with the community and all of the organizations to ensure that things are moving forward in a responsible and productive way? Who is your point person for homelessness?
I will get to that, but I want to address something. First of all, the administration was asked to come here to discuss the closure of the Sullivan, camp abatement, and sanctioned campgrounds. I was not asked to prepare for non-congregate sheltering and all these other questions. I'm happy to provide that information, but Mr. Perez-Verdia, that was not the intent of the meeting as I was explained to it by the chair of this committee. I'll refer to Alexis Johnson, the chief of staff with the mayor, who will discuss the policy for the administration and who leads that.
Through the chair, Mr. Perez-Verdia, as you know, homelessness in Anchorage is a all-hands-on-deck effort, so just one person would not suffice, in my opinion, and I believe that's the belief of the administration. We are working diligently with AHD, Parks and Rec. I've taken the lead on Centennial Campground. We're also working with operations, public transport, CAP team, APD. So to say who's the one running the show is not. It's an all hands-on-deck effort. So as far as the Sullivan, AHD Director Joe Gerace would be the point of contact on that. As far as Centennial Campground, you can either talk to me, Amy, or Mike Braniff with Parks and Rec. If you have any questions about abatement, you can also talk to Parks and Rec or the CAP team. There's many points of contact, just depending on what subject you want to discuss. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just one follow-up question.
Actually, sorry, Mr. President, I'm going to interrupt you. I just want to clarify the record before you continue. Yeah, so just to clarify the record, I appreciate any confusion that may have occurred during our communications, Ms. Navosti, but the agenda which was sent to you on Friday stated mass care closure. As we have all known, mass care includes two components, congregate and non-congregate mass care. In addition, my email to you yesterday at 2:07 p.m. did highlight the 4 different areas which I have asked for information to be provided, including non-congregate closure. So I apologize if there was any confusion on your part. Go ahead, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one follow-up question. Who are the subject matter experts that you are using to inform your decisions about your work in homelessness?
Through the chair, Mr. Perez-Verdia, we're working with multiple community partners to include Catholic Social Services, Salvation Army, Downtown Hope Center, Gospel Rescue Mission, Peace Cafe, 99+1. We are also talking with Allison at Covenant House. We've been working with ACH. Those are just a few of the community partners. If I missed any, my apologies.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, so all of those leaders of those organizations are acting as your subject matter experts to inform your decisions moving forward. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Mr. President, I should restate that homelessness is an all-hands-on-deck issue. There's actually a lot of practices that come forward. Some people believe in sanctioned camping, some don't. We take all advice. We take phone calls all day for things that we're not the leading experts on, and we try to make the best decision that we can for our community, not just the unsheltered and unhoused community, but for our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll accept that as a non-answer to the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Allard, and then we'll move on to Camp Abate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm a little bit confused with the administration. Mr. Rivera clearly stated that he gave you guys notice at 2 p.m. to be here today with all the information. And was that adequate enough time to get the information to us that we needed? Just for clarification, please.
Clearly not, Ms. Heller. I couldn't predict what questions assembly members would ask specific to nuanced issues. The primary focus of many of our community partners and assembly members have been the closure of the Sullivan Arena as a FEMA response location. That was my primary focus, as well as camp abatement and potential for illegal camping. So no, I couldn't read Mr. Presberger's mind or anybody else's and predict what nuanced question you were asking about non-congregate care.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to camp abatement. So the first question I have is camp abatement occurring right now?
Currently, Davis Park is still in the process of finishing. As you know, Mr. Rivera, sorry about that. That abatement began last week in earnest. If you'd like, before we get into the abatement discussion, I do have some comments from Parks and Rec and Fire Department.
Sure.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I spoke with Chief Draghi this morning, and he provided me with a detailed information relating to the fire danger. This is coming effectively from the fire department. The number of potential wildland fire calls is much higher than fires encountered. So, for example, in June, so far we've dispatched 464 potential fires and encountered 123 of them. Between the months of April 10th and June 28th, we've had 894 calls for fire or smoke. The latest result of fires responding to potential fires is demand on personnel and equipment. To give some context to the fire danger, number of wildfires, and those originating in homeless camps / illegal camping locations, I'm just going to give you a snapshot of 3 months. In April, we had 54 total confirmed fires. 8 of them were wildland fires. Of the 54 total, 34 were originated in homeless camps or illegal camping locations. In May, 298 confirmed fires. 61 of them were wildfires. Of the 288 total fires in May, 106 originated in homeless camps at illegal camping location sites. In June, so far we've had 123 confirmed fires. 60 of those were wildland fires. Out of the total 123 total in June, 79 originated in homeless camps, illegal camping locations. With that, I'll switch to the Parks and Rec update. I'll switch to Parks and Rec update. Davis Park has been approximately 75% abated. Work is ongoing. About 35 camps have been cleaned thus far. We look to finish by the end of June 30th. We did encounter a very rare situation of elementary school-age children living in a camp in Davis. We notified ACH to send outreach yesterday. Camp abatement. Prior to posting any camp, we always assure that we have capacity within low barrier shelters. This was true when the 42 camps were posted on June 14th. After posting, we are constantly monitoring shelter capacity and reevaluate the scheduled abatement as needed. Outreach typically engages campers after posting through notification by the Anchorage Police Department and provides opportunities for shelter and relevant services. If a client identifies that they are seeking shelter during abatement, Park and Rec immediately contacts Outreach for assistance. While the Sullivan Arena is winding down, we will remain empathetic to those who need shelter. We are not turning individuals away. In fact, we are always taking steps to find the best option for the individual, which often includes placement in other locations. And as far as the abatement goes at Davis Park, that's the update that I have, and that's the only current abatement that I know of that's going on right now.
Thank you. Okay, so then the answer to my question is camp abatement is occurring right now. So is current abatement based on, obviously your assertion is that there are beds available to have abatement happening right now, is that correct?
I want to be clear, this abatement began on Friday, and there was shelter capacity on Friday. We're in the process of finishing cleaning up that illegal camp that was there.
Are there any future abatements planned?
We are always evaluating for public safety. If there's a location, for example, if somebody sets up a homeless camp or an illegal camp in a public safety area of risk, i.e. they might get hit by a car, we're going to abate that. So this is always an ongoing, every single day we're evaluating the camps that come in, that are being registered, that are being reported to us, and the public safety need. But again, as I just discussed, the last large abatement that I'm aware of was the one that began on Friday, and that is the abatement that is going on right now.
Okay, so I guess just one final question before I go through the queue. So you are not aware of any abatements that are planned for after July 1st?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Constant?
Thank you. I would like at some point in the near future a memo that establishes for the Assembly the methodology for the administration calculating available shelter beds. What tools, how are they being counted, what's available, the methodology. I think we need to all be on the same sheet of music when it comes to determining capacity.
Does the administration have a response to that?
We'll take that request under consideration.
Thank you. Ms. LaFrance?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to go back to the point regarding camp abatement and shelter availability. I know Ms. Zimboski stated that last Friday, which was the 24th of June, I believe there was shelter available. Where was that shelter available? Was that the Sullivan as it was reopened for admittance that date, or could you identify what beds were available or where anyway? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Ms. LaFrance. Actually, what I said was, prior to posting any camp, we always assured that we have capacity within low barrier shelters. This was true when the 42 camps were posted on June 14th. I did not give details of what that shelter capacity was at that time, because I don't have it in front of me. I'm sure they know, but I do not have it in front of me.
Thank you for that clarification. I had thought you had said shelters available on Friday. Thank you.
Shelter was available on Friday.
Okay. Thank you. And you do not know where that shelter was available. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Ms. Allard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Davis Park is in my district, which circles around and is in the Mountain View area. Ms. Domboski, is it within the MOA's right to process that abatement that took place at Davis Park?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Constant?
Thank you. An assertion that capacity existed does not, in fact, establish a record that capacity existed It only establishes that a member of the administration says it's so. So to anybody who might be listening, their lack of presenting concrete information about the existence of where shelter is, until proven otherwise, not true. And that said, an argument that the problem is outreach. What can outreach workers do when they're told that there's no room at the inn? There's nothing they can do. And so that turns into a disastrous interaction with an individual who's in crisis. That's what's happening here, people.
Thank you. Mr. Solt?
Thank you. So through the chair, so I do like the idea of a single source of information, and it seems, after this meeting at around the time, it would be easy to run around all the shelters and ask them exactly how much space they have and kind of get to the bottom of this. It's kind of a shell game in a way for them. But I was curious, with all the fires that were started in camps and apparently were under a burn ban, were there any consequences for these fires as far as the individuals or not?
Just to clarify the record, the municipality is in a high fire danger right now, so burning is illegal in many regards, but it's not technically a burn ban. I can check back with APD regarding citations that were issued during that burn ban. I know, for example, the Almar fire that we had last week, we know it was human caused. We know there was a homeless camp in the area. But did they link it back to a person? Not that I'm aware of. So it's very difficult in these situations. Oftentimes, whenever APD, we do have fire investigators, not only from the municipality, but from the Division of Forestry, that come in and investigate when we have these wildland fires, especially when forestry resources are involved. And prosecutions do occur. I can't give you the numbers on those, but I can certainly research it and get back to you to tell you when we are successful and if people were cited or if they were arrested.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Chair.
Thank you. So I have two people in the queue, Ms. Allard and myself, and then I'd like us to move on to our last item. Ms. Allard?
Thank you, and I thank you, Ms. Ware, for your testimony today and to other nonprofits for stepping up. What I want to say is that the government's heavy-handed in being involved with homelessness is actually run amok. Everybody involved. In the last 6 years, you can see the heavy-handedness of the government being involved with homelessness, and it has escalated dramatically. So I would like to encourage Ms. Ware to continue to do the great things that she's doing, and the rest of our community to step up, churches to, all the nonprofits to make sure we get this straight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm next. So can you, and then I have one more person, and then I want us to move on to our last topic. Okay, so can you tell me, Mr. Mosky or Ms. Johnson, who from the administration is responsible for keeping track of the number of beds available at any given day?
Through the chair, I believe that those numbers lie with AHE, so Director Durace would be a good point of contact for that. And then if not him, he can direct you to the correct person within the health department. Thanks.
And Mr. Rivera, if I may follow up, I just wanted to point out, I didn't read down far enough in the Parks Department analysis for me. One of the things that Josh Duran has told me over and over again, and this is one of the things he's watching, if the MLA finds ourselves in a situation where we have camps impacting public safety and we have no low barrier shelter capacity, we will take steps to activate options for emergency sheltering. I do want to point out too, there are limitations in municipal code that requires there to be a certain temperature for some of these emergency shelters to be activated. So that might be an area where we can collaborate and say, what other options do we have to potentially do this? And lastly, I want to just say, the reason Alexis and I are here today, it's not because Director Jervis didn't want to come. It's not because the Parks Department don't want to come. They're busy. We're in the process right now of demobilizing one of the largest congregate care locations, FEMA response locations in the country. And we are trying to do it in a respectful fashion. We're trying to do it with compassion. And we're doing the very best we can to make sure, as as we find illegal camping that is in high spruce bark beetle kill locations that are detriment to public safety if they catch on fire, which we saw last week. We're trying to make sure that we're keeping the city safe and we're being respectful and we're being compassionate. So the Parks Department is working on overtime to not only do abatements in these dangerous areas, but they're also going in after and they're bringing in tree crews to cut down the spruce bark beetle kill. So this isn't because, there's some political narrative. We're busy working, and so you have us here to try to give you as much information as possible. But the constant reclassifications of what we're saying, it's just not going to move the narrative forward. We are here today because we want to work with you. We want to be productive. We want to be compassionate to those in our community. And this is an olive branch. You can keep attacking all you want. We're going to get the job done.
Mr. Constant?
Thank you. In the context of olive branches, first, Ms. Allard, I would say I completely agree with your previous comments. That's absolutely true. And to the municipal manager, I would say that this body amended the emergency shelter plan activation and deactivation section of the code 16.120.020 Part A. Part 3 allows when the director determines in writing the lack of available shelter options otherwise poses a danger to the life and health of the unsheltered people within the municipality, the administration may establish an emergency shelter.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Constant. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to our last item on our agenda, sanctioned campgrounds. Or campgrounds/campgrounds. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a couple questions and then open it up to the queue. So first, does the administration know how many people experiencing homelessness are currently staying at Centennial Campground?
Thank you for the question. If I may, can I start with the comments from the Parks Department?
Sure.
Thank you very much for that. Relating to Centennial Campground, I have a variety of comments from the Health Department and from the Parks and Rec. There are 62 of 84 campsites are occupied as of this morning, 74 total tents. Not sure about the total number of people, but we will be going through doing a count on that. As we speak, probably it's already happening. Through yesterday, there were 594 bags of leaves that have all been raked up, totaling 10,150 pounds. We're doing the best we can to ensure that this is a safe location and that there's not extra potential fire starter material. Thus far, the camp is clean and quiet. There's no signs of crime. The largest current challenge is food storage. Of course, we live in Alaska, there's bears, so we're very bear aware. So far, we are not permitting any fires in the campground. We are working on cooking rolls, but we are really thankful to our community partners. I know Pizza has been in there, but there's been lots of food being delivered by outreach partners, so we appreciate that. From the Health Department's update related to Centennial Campground. The Health Department has transported 16 individuals there as of yesterday to legally camp. The Health Department and the Salvation Army were both on site, both helping to either build tents or give people cots. Those were provided by the Salvation Army. Again, another great community partner that we appreciate. Security, showers, and bathrooms are provided at this location. Yesterday, again, Beans Cafe was on site with meals. All transfers to Centennial Campground are voluntary. This has proved to be a viable option for some clients who just need a little bit more time to complete their housing process or were already planning to illegally camp. This ensures that providers know where they are and where to find them. And we have walked through that campground, gone through that campground multiple times, and we've received a lot of thank yous from the campers there saying they feel safe there and they really appreciate the running water and the toilets. We also did note that Centennial Campground has historically been used as a last option by many who can't afford traditional housing. This has been a source of discussion between me and the parks director for a while. And somebody said this is not new to the campground or the staff in the area. The campground is an established campground. It is allowable camping pursuant to municipal code. I'll just stop right there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and go to member questions, starting with Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize, Mr. Mossy. Right at the beginning of your discussion or your presentation, I got distracted by another message. So I apologize if any of this is repeating, but could you say again how many people experiencing homelessness are now at Centennial Campground? What will the final capacity be? And how long are they expected to be there? And what happens at the 14-day mark? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All great questions. So the people count we are in the process of doing right now, and that'll be done, I'm anticipating routinely. We have 62, Mr. Dunbar, of the 84 camps that are currently occupied as of this morning. I don't have a number of people, but we did count 74 total tents.
Can I ask a quick follow-up before you answer that? So it's not one tent per spot, it could be more than one tent per spot, is that right?
Correct.
And then, of course, we don't know how many people are in each tent.
Correct. Okay. We are in the process of finding that information. As far as capacity of Centennial, as I said, there's currently, hang on a second, I have it right here. The campground currently has 82 regular campsites and 2 group sites with a picnic table. They have, of those 82 campsites, 21 RV sites, 20 with electrical connections, 20 RV sites with no electrical connections, 41 tent sites, 2 group sites, a playground, and it does have public access Wi-Fi as well. Some of the other amenities in this location, there is a cabin with a bathroom, heat, internet, phone, soda vending. There's a 40-foot conex storage area. We have dumpsters there. We have an RV water fill station and dump station there. We have 2 restrooms and shower houses. Each bathhouse the women's has 3 showers, 3 toilets. The men's has 3 showers, 2 toilets, and 2 urinals. Hopefully that's helpful information for you. What was your other question, sir?
How long will folks be remaining at this location? And I understand it's 14 days under code, and what happens at the end of 14 days for the people that are being moved from the Sullivan to there?
Okay, I will start, and then I think Alexis will finish. The code does say that there's a 14-day limit on camping. Right now, I'm in the process of working through a solution. My hope was that the assembly and the administration could get together and come up with some sort of mitigated solution to find maybe a middle ground during especially a high fire danger time, which we're in right now, and then I'll turn it over to Alexis.
Did you have any follow-up? Through the chair, Mr. Dunbar, did you have any follow-up questions?
I do, if the chair will allow me, if they're able to. For how long has the administration internally discussed or discussed with partners turning Centennial Park into a location where we would be moving people experiencing homelessness? Were there any other sites considered for sanctioned camping? And yeah, I'll leave with those 2. I'll start with those 2.
I will lead with Mr. Dunbar, the definitive decision to turn on Centennial Campground and allow it for all members of the public, even those who can't afford the camping fee, was made mid to late last week. With respect to internal communications, those are protected, confidential, deliberative, executive privilege conversations, and without express permission of the mayor, I cannot waive deliberative privilege.
So my other question was, were any other sites considered for sanctioned camping in Anchorage?
Thank you for the question. Again, Mr. Dunbar, I'm not privy to, we're going to have the authorization to waive internal deliberative conversations.
Can I ask follow-up to the other people?
I have a couple other folks.
Okay, I'll come back.
Put you back. Yeah. Ms. Allard?
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to start off by saying that I've actually toured the Centennial Campground on 3 separate occasions. I got videos and I also did pictures. I was actually pleasantly surprised on how the community of the campground members were, the area was clean. I mean, the trash, they were using their yellow bags, they were putting everything in the trash cans. We did see a couple individuals smoking. Of course, we don't want everybody smoking right now, but it is legal to smoke outside. The other thing I noticed was, thank you. The other thing I noticed was that we don't have a better solution. We just don't. And I don't want to challenge the administration or the assembly to come up with a better one. I want the community to. That's where it needs to be, and that's where it needs to belong. You are actually the professionals when it comes to helping our most vulnerable population. This is not a homeless site. This is a campground that is absolutely open to all individuals, regardless of their living situation. And so I want to keep reiterating that, because I think when people keep calling it a homeless site, fellow assembly members, it's actually putting out the wrong message, and it's not true, and it's not accurate. The other thing is that when we abated, because it's in District 2, when the MOA came and abated Davis Park, one of the reasons I felt that when they brought it up and said, hey, we're going to use Centennial Park, is because Davis Park is within 2.7 miles of Centennial Park. And I heard testimony from other individuals today that said we want to be the least disruptive. This could trigger individuals. This is very hard on their souls and their lives right now. So to have it at Centennial Park is not a bad idea, to allow it to be open and free to all who legally can camp. The other thing I would say is that when we were talking about the 14 days, according to code, how are we going to get these individuals out? I want to make sure that everyone understands that the Parks and Rec has been very generous throughout the years. And I'll explain why. As a former military person, and as a retired military person, I have seen military people, not me, but we stayed at Spruce Campground when we were transitioning up here over a decade ago. There are military people that have stayed at Centennial Park for months, 3, 4, 5 months. They come up in April, and they will stay there until their housing is available or their house is available outside on the economy. So it's not just, well, how are we going to get them out in 14 days? We don't do that to anybody else. So why are we saying this today? We need to be more compassionate, we need to be more sensitive, and we need to follow up with what we've been saying for the last 2 years. So me, being here on this assembly, hearing how we need to be more compassionate to these individuals. So again, if the community can come up with an immediate solution to help any individual for housing, bring it forward to us, because we are failing our community.
Thank you. Before I move on in the queue, I have 3 folks, including myself, Mr. Dunbar, and Mr. Constant. I would like a motion to extend, let's see if we can do 20 minutes.
Second.
Okay. Is there any opposition? And I haven't conferred with the administration, so hopefully you're able to stay for a little longer.
Our 12:30 is asking us if we're going to join, but I will text them and tell them we're ready.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, we are extended until 12:50. All right, so let me go ahead and go through the queue, starting with myself. I have a couple of questions. So first is, I am not very familiar with the rules of the Centennial Campground. Are there any legal substances that are allowed to be used at Centennial? Like alcohol or marijuana?
I would assume so. I have a whole list of rules. Would you like me to run through some?
If you could just point through any rules related to substances like alcohol or marijuana, please.
Through the chair to Mr. Rivera, in the campground posted rules, this is online, it does say alcoholic beverages are prohibited.
Thank you. And then my second question is, so are there any sort of additional amenities outside of what was at the campground that are in place? And if so, I'm trying to get a sense of what other community partners are doing. I heard earlier food. Can you just talk a little bit about what other community partners are doing, if you have a sense of the scale of how much money other community partners are putting into this?
Through the chair, Mr. Rivera, I wouldn't have a definitive answer on how much money our historical and community partners are putting towards this effort. I do know that food has been delivered, water has been delivered. I know that the administration is working with ACEH to put together some hot weather kits. That's supposed to be coming online, I believe, on Friday. So there is outreach happening. There's a laundromat within, I believe, a mile of the campground. We're exploring options to maybe get some community partners to help facilitate with that. But there is bathroom, showers, clean water, dumpster, most basic communities on the campground site already, including Wi-Fi. So.
Thank you. Mr. Dunbar?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple more questions. So at the Emergency Northeast Community Council meeting, a number of neighbors expressed security concerns and concerns about breaking in. I know there is one, I think, sort of camp post on site, but are there plans for additional security both for the neighborhood, but also for the people who are going to be there, which it sounds like it's going to be, when all said and done, probably more than 100 people. Is there a plan for additional security? Second question, obviously there is fire danger in that neighborhood too. It's a heavily wooded area, so is there anything being done to mitigate fire danger, not in the campground, but in the woods outside, just near the campground? And the third question is, there's a very large senior care facility there, senior housing facility, run by Cookingland Housing Authority, Centennial Village. Have you had any communications with them? I know that some people have reached out to me from that community with concerns, and so have you been communicating with Cookingland Housing Authority about Centennial Village?
Thank you for those questions, Mr. Dunbar. I tried to take notes as fast as I could. Security, before we waived the fee and opened this campground to all public, whether you could afford the fee or not, we did increase the security. This campground already had security. As I said, it historically has been a campground that has been used basically as the last straw for many who couldn't afford traditional housing. So that has been in place for many years, but we did bump it up. So security is there. With respect to the fire danger, at the beginning of this spring, we actually did do spruce bark mitigation around the Centennial campground, not just in the campground, but around the area. So that was one of the primary areas that I focused on early on, is what I was told by Parks and Rec. But again, the fire danger, I mentioned the 10,000 pounds already of leaves and twigs and brush that we've already taken out of that campground. That was in direct recognition of, hey, we're going to be bringing in a lot more campers here than typically would be here, or typically have been here this time of year. And so we went in and we cleared out all the brush, the leaves, the twigs. So fire danger is clearly very much on our minds, and that's why we have not allowed open fires in the campground either. I'm not aware of conversations with Cookingland Housing on this particular issue, but I think that's a great suggestion. If they haven't happened, I will make sure they do happen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I ask a couple follow-ups? Thank you for that last point, and I think they would be eager to speak with you. You mentioned increased security. Can you say what that looks like exactly? Sort of, what does that mean? Is that a private contractor? How many folks are we talking about? And then so what you said is not what Ms. Johnson told this community council at the meeting. She said that there had been clearing in the campground, but not sort of near the campground. So you're saying that was mistaken?
No, I might have misspoken. I think it's been both. I think we've been camping in the Centennial campground area. And so on municipal property, that's where we do our spruce bark beetle mitigation. It's on municipal property. So I'm sure that happened in the campground, around the campground, but on municipal property in that location.
Okay, and the increased security, what is that? How many people, what does that look like exactly?
I am looking really quick because I know at some point they gave me, we have Parks and Rec staff that is there. I'm just trying to see if I can find it in my barrage of notes. We do have Parks and Rec staff that is there routinely. Right here. The campground is staffed with 1 AMEA regular staff member and 3 seasonal staff. Overnight security guards are also contracted for the campground to provide additional security in the hours staff is not on site. There's also a volunteer camp host couple that's on site year-round. So we do have municipal staff or emissaries of the municipality, being contractors, that are on site 24/7. The contractor is Securitas. They are the contractor. I will tell you, I drove through there. I've driven through there multiple times. I know Alexis has been there multiple times, and every time I've seen municipal staff present, I've also seen security present. And I've seen a lot of really grateful campers, frankly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Constant.
Thank you. 2 things. Early one, I just need to address this notion that this is not a place for homeless people. Similarly, as it was described as Sullivan, it wasn't. But that it's open to all. The posting, the sign on the campsite says we're no longer taking reservations because basically we have citywide safety needs we're addressing. So they stopped accepting general reservations and are only allowing those that have vouchers. And those who are receiving the vouchers are those who are generally called homeless. It's the same with the mass shelter. It was used as a homeless shelter. It feels very like a Ginsbergian tax on the workers going on here, where we're talking about it one way, but it's actually something else. And the thing that it is the thing that everybody sees and knows. And so, but that's really just a comment. I have a question. It's really in 3 parts. The question that I'm hoping we can get to, and it's not something you probably can answer today, it would be a question better to be answered with some thoughtful input. And that's the question of what's the plan for increasing toilet capacity, because basically the facility as it stands doesn't really have enough toilets for the kind of use. And toilets are one of the #1 problems, the lack of sanitation. Then what's the plan for access to food? Because people who are hungry turn into people who are not good neighbors. And so we want to make sure that if this facility is providing these services, that there is a plan for food, and how is that going to be paid for, who's going to provide. And I mean, if we have needs, we'll figure out a way. And then finally, the transportation plan, because it is fairly isolated off of maybe corridors of transportation. Just to get back to Muldoon is quite a hike. And so that, in some ways, since we're driving people there, creates an environment where there are a lot of questions. And so I don't necessarily need a comprehensive answer to this, but those are the issues that are top of mind for me: is food, toilets, and transportation.
All good issues. I'll just take a very brief comment on it. And first, I want to say some of the opening statements, comments that you made simply were inaccurate. Yes, there was a posting that was put on the door. It was not authorized by me. I had to take it down because it was not correct. We are not taking up reservations. That is true. And Ms. Johnson will talk to that in just a second. And we started the idea of the concept of vouchers, but that quickly just went away, and we just said anybody who wants to camp here can camp here. So people don't have to have a voucher to come in now. Sometimes when you're in an emergency operations situation, you have an idea and how it plays out in your head versus what actually happens is different. And that's what we realized is for us, we just didn't want to turn people away because we simply knew they wanted to come here. And so we tried that. With respect to transportation, I've taken that route multiple times now, and luckily it is right off of Muldoon, and there are bus stops that are not that far down the road. But that is something, if this becomes, and this is why I really hope we can sit down and have a real conversation, kind of put the political talking points aside, and actually try to solve this together, because, if this becomes an avenue the Assembly wants to pursue in a longer term fashion, maybe not forever, but maybe for a few months, I don't know. If it does, I think all those things you brought up, Mr. Constant, all have to be considered. Transportation to services, toilets. We have a contractor that is on contract with Parks and Rec right now. With the other parks we do, we have porta potties that we need to bring in. I could call and have porta potties delivered today. And actually, now that you brought it up, I think it's a great idea. So I think we'll augment that situation, especially as campers decide that this is a location that they choose to be. So those are all things that I think are important to discuss. But that's why we're here. We're here to say, is this part of the strategy? Look, this is an emergency situation. We recognize that with our high fire danger, but this isn't necessarily an adopted plan in our homeless strategy. And so this is a response to a public safety need. Ms. Johnson.
Through the chair, Mr. Constant, so I actually just texted Parks and Rec, and they said at this time there's no need for additional security or additional bathrooms, but they have the capacity to up those numbers shall the city need it. So that's good news. And then as far as food, as of right now, those needs are being met from our traditional, historic, and nonprofits around town. So until something comes up that it's not being met, then we can look into filling that void. But as of right now, the needs are being met. And then I just want to say one statement. There are people staying at the campground that are not houseless. There are people traveling. There are campers that can afford the fee, had that been in place. But as of right now, the meeting has waived the fee, and there are campers. They have been notified that yes, we did open the campground to people who are unsheltered or unhoused. They elected to stay, and I think that speaks volumes that we can camp amongst people whether they're affluent or not. And I'll be staying there tomorrow night as well, just to experience it and see what's happening in our city. So I really do think that this is a great opportunity for our city to see what a sanctioned camp looks like, or how we can better suit the needs of people who are currently unsheltered. One last thing I want to say is that not everyone who's staying at Centennial came from Davis or came from Sullivan. And some people who are leaving Sullivan may elect not to go to Centennial. So it's kind of a melting pot of the community, but I just wanted to add that because I do think this is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm just trying to manage time here, folks. I have 3 people in the queue. Then I want to give the opportunity for the administration to make any closing comment. I have one, and then we still need to do audience participation, so we're likely going to be extending one more time. Let's go ahead and though get through as much as we can before 12:50, starting with Ms. LaFrance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the administration for being here. I appreciate you making the time. We've had other homelessness committee meetings that have been canceled because we were not able to have the participation of the administration, so I appreciate you making this a priority. As to sanctioned camping, it's not a new idea. It's something that was discussed in this committee with some initial outreach done to subject matter experts and community members. But I was surprised to have learned of the development of Centennial Park, and I am curious as to who in the community practice concerning sanctioned camping or any subject matter experts that the administration is working with. And I asked because I know one of the concerns raised by East Anchorage leaders was that there are a number of questions that could have been addressed on the front end and the community could have been brought in from the get-go. So I'm curious as to who you're working with to identify any of those issues and to ensure that operations run smoothly.
I'm going to hand it to Alexis, but I'll start by saying I just want to reiterate, Centennial Campground is a campground. It is not sanctioned homeless camping, part of a broader homelessness strategy at this time. It's definitely a topic for conversation, and I'm glad we're having it. I think it's something that probably many of us will think about and contemplate. But for that, I just want to make sure we're very clear. Centennial Campground is not at this time part of a broader homelessness strategy.
Through the chair, Ms. LaFrance. I just do want to start off by saying that it's easy to convolute the two ideas of what's going on and what the future may hold. And so, with that being said, during the 13-acre fire over in Midtown, there was emergency decisions made. Yes, sanctioned campground idea is not new. It's been around for many, many years, and we do have some loud advocates in the city that want these sanctioned camp. Yes, the idea has been talked about off and on throughout the months, but this decision was not made as a sanctioned camp decision. It was more so made as a designated area for people seeking emergency camping areas during a high fire danger. Thanks.
Thank you, and I do understand it's regarded by the administration as an emergency response rather than part of a strategic approach. And I just want to be very clear that I will not support any extension of the 14-day limit until I get more information and until the community has more information as well. Because what I've heard from this meeting is that there is no coordination through a point of contact among members of the administration, and there's no subject matter expert guiding policy for the administration, and that is very concerning to me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, so before I move on, if you have three folks in the queue, Ms. Haller, Mr. Sultan, Mr. Dunbar, I just want to get a sense of how many folks in the audience want to participate in final audience participation. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so then I'll go ahead and see if we can extend another, let's do 20 minutes and hope that we can get through everything by then. And apologies, folks, I should have probably scheduled more time than an hour and a half. So if I can get a motion to extend another 20 minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any opposition? And I totally understand that folks need to leave before we're done. Okay, so with that, we are extended until 1:10. All right, with that, I have three folks in the queue, starting with Ms. Allard.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I wanted to start off by saying to the public that our committee meetings for homelessness, it's up to the Assembly to hold regardless of who shows up or not. It's an opportunity for us to discuss what we would like to bring forward to other organizations and to the administration. So whether they show up or not should not affect our job or our work. The other thing I will say is that I would support an extension. We have individuals that are in need of some sort of water, toilets, food, and other things. So to say that I won't support it is not going to come from me. We need to take care of our most vulnerable and to just say, you know what, we're not going to have it for you. You go back on the street, you don't have any access to any resources. I'm done with you and wash our hands. It's not okay. This question is to the administration. We had discussed a few minutes ago about access to toilets, and I would like to know, we have it's at 82 spots for campers, so absolutely the capacity has got to be pretty high, because if you go off an average of a family of 4, the toilet capacity and the water capacity is probably really great. Could you tell me, by chance with Parks and Rec, do they have the total capacity before they actually say campground pool by person? Or is it just when all the slots are taken up, number one? Number two, is it based on septic or is it city water for that particular campground, please?
Through the chair to Assemblymember Allard, I can't give you an answer on if it's septic or not. I can definitely ask that really quick and give the answer for you. As of right now,
To make it a little easier, as far as like a rolling number, how many do you guys authorize in each camp spot? Parks and Rec probably has that.
So historically, Centennial Campground has 82, and they put a max capacity within the posted rules. It's 6 people per campsite.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next I have Mr. Schultz.
Okay, through the chair, just want to tell the administration thank you for taking action. While not perfect, I'm sure we'll learn a lot through this. as someone that represents the hillside and sees the greater potential of a runaway fire, let's say last week's fire happened during some high winds, we would have a much greater problem and much possibly loss of life, possibly the homeless, loss of life as well as residents. We have more homeless as houses burn down. So I think it is a prudent action, although you can always find fault with it, so you're either helping or hurting the situation. I'm just curious, do you know the cost to operate Centennial Park versus the Sullivan? What the delta is there, a chance, per day, per week, however we look at it?
Thank you for that. As I indicated earlier, we have effectively, I think it was 3 AME staff members, the cost of the contract. I actually have those numbers in front of me somewhere. Can't remember the snapshot. Here we go. Currently, again, there is 1 regular AME staff member and 3 seasonal overnight security guard. 1 security guard the cost is $30,300. 1 regular AME employee, 50% of their time is $13,000. 3 seasonal staff is $37,000. The dumpster cost at Centennial Campground is $4,100. Electric is $850. Heat is $318, and AWU is $950. The average revenue pre-COVID for this campground, again, the campground usually closes right after Labor Day. The annual revenue for Centennial is $121,000. So the cost is clearly a lot less than Sullivan.
Through the chair, Mr. Solver, historically, the Sullivan Arena has been roughly $1.1 million a month.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to ask a question this time. It's not a work session, it's a meeting, so I wanted to make a little bit of a statement here. We're in a really tough position where we are trying to be guided by our humanity and the humanity of people experiencing homelessness. But I can't help but point out the incredible hypocrisy of people saying this shouldn't be a political issue, or we can't politicize this and put politics aside. 2 years ago, in this very chamber, the prior administration put forward a fairly detailed plan to try to get us out of the Sullivan and create a continuum of care. And we experienced months of rage, frankly, about those plans. And then that morphed into Save Anchorage, and that morphed into Bronson's campaign. And I remember very clearly the attacks on me, on this body, on the prior administration about homelessness, endless politics about homelessness. And then this body passed another plan in May of 2021 that again would have tried to ease us out of the Sullivan Arena. And the new mayor came into power in July and threw that in the trash. And we've been scrambling ever since, figuring out what we should be doing. They have been scrambling ever since. This is an emergency of their creation, a humanitarian crisis of their creation. And speaking to Mr. Solt's point about the hillside, we all want to reduce fire danger there, there's no question. But don't kid yourself. If this campground were on the hillside or in another wealthy neighborhood, Sand Lake or somewhere like that, there is not a chance in hell that they would be doing this. So I don't want to hear about, we're going to have to put politics aside because of the humanitarian crisis. But for the last 2 years, we've experienced nothing but politics of this issue from these same people who created this crisis. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Constant.
Thank you. I just would like to point to this idea again of what is the purpose of this place. It was very carefully stated. This is not for homeless. This is an emergency response for fire. But the question is raised, what does it cost compared to the men's shelter? And the answer is given comfortably. It's a lot less expensive to tackle the issues with these homeless people. And so effectively, we continue to hear the conversation from both sides of our mouths. And it is what it is. It is a site to serve homeless people. And there might be some alternative uses happening there, more traditional uses, but those are limited and they're being changed. And so it would be nice if we could come to a point where we have a shared lexicon and a shared set of ideas. And the way we get there is being briefed, having thoughtful plans presented to us, having the plans investigated and beaten on, and challenged, and then what comes through that process is a better plan. But when these kind of things are just sprung, when these kind of things are just sprung on the body and all the work has been done in advance, or not much work, but a claim that a lot of work has been done in advance, we find ourselves in a position where credibility is questioned. It was asserted that a member was going to be heartless and just throw people out of this camp. I want to state for the record that that is not what I heard the member from South Anchor say. What I heard that person say was that without partnership and information, without having a fair second branch of government to work with on this, then the answer is no. It's not about being heartless, it's about having a heartless response handed to us, and we're told you have to eat this pile. Fact of the matter is, as Mr. Dunbar said, this is a humanitarian crisis, and we do have to deal with it. And in many ways, it is a crisis of the making of this administration. Because we did have a plan, and that plan was comprehensive. But then a group of people who sit back here uncivilly shouting over us still demonstrate to us that a reasonable plan isn't what matters, only the plan that our tribe presents. That's all that matters. And so, this body is going to stand for that. We're going to keep working towards housing and getting these individuals off the streets in a permanent manner. And Alexis, I hope your adventure camping offer is good. I actually believe in you, and I hope that you can see the best parts of this and help us to grow something good. But these things don't happen fast or easy or cheap. And the opportunity for harm is much greater than the opportunity for good if we're not careful.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, I just have one question, and this was something that came up with one of the neighbors when we had the emergency community council meeting out at Centennial Park the other night. And they were wondering where the nearest fire hydrant is. Because if there was in fact a fire, we weren't sure that we were going to have to truck the water in or what the situation would be. Thank you.
Through the chair, Assemblymember Peterson, I can absolutely get that information for you right away.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the administration if they'd like to make a closing comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. The municipality is currently experiencing a high fire danger as evidenced by the large wildfire that occurred near Elmore and East Dowling last week. Illegal camping exacerbates high fire danger and is a public safety issue that must be addressed. With respect to Davis Park, individuals were encouraged to utilize other sheltering options, including the Sullivan Arena. Ms. LaFrance, I think that would answer part of your question. If they refused shelter and chose to camp, Centennial Campground was offered as a legal camping option. At this time, and as long as the fire danger remains high, the municipality will continue to encourage and direct illegal campers to legal camping options and sheltering whenever possible. While the municipality does not provide food at Centennial Campground, as we've heard and we've seen, many community partners have stepped in to provide those services to those who need it at this location. The effort at Centennial Campground is designed to direct campers to a long-established legal camping option. While Centennial Campground is currently not part of the administration's adopted homelessness response effort, the administration stands willing to work with the Assembly to consider the idea of longer-term legal camping options for those who choose to camp. To that end, we are willing to work with the Assembly to consider concerns, mitigate those concerns, as well as develop a long-term framework that may complement a broader strategy to serve our residents that choose to camp and utilize legal camping locations. We appreciate the opportunity to speak with you here today, and I'll just turn it over to Alexis so she has any final comments.
Through the chair, Mr. Peterson, I just wanted to answer. It looks like I just did a quick search. There is one on Muldoon Road in Peck. There might be one closer. This list was updated in 2018, but that's one of the closest ones I found. As far as closing statements go, I'm going to continue to be the drumbeat to say that homelessness should not be politicized. Those things that Assemblymember from East Anchorage did speak about, in the words of Cameron Perez-Verdia, that was then, this is now. We need to move forward as a joint body to address an issue that has been long-standing in our community. I'd like to give thanks to Mr. Rivera, Meg, all the people who helped during facilitation, but those two have been huge proponents of helping this issue in our city. It's important that we look at this not through the lens of a politicized lens and to maintain focus that this is a humanitarian issue, whether we're in crisis or not. So, although I appreciate your comments, I will strongly disagree. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make some closing comments, and then I'll open it up to final audience participation, and then we will adjourn hopefully at 1:10. So I want to thank the administration for providing some clear information today, and as the administration has alluded to, I think there's a lot more discussion to have on this and many other topics regarding homelessness. With regard to a lot of the sort of attacks and politics mentioned, if you perceive any of those are primarily due to a lack of information, a lack of communication, and plainly for some in our community, a lack of coordination and collaboration. You know, I say this a lot to folks. In the absence of good and timely information, you get put on the defensive, and that is what we have seen from our community members. The community has been put on the defensive. So I want to encourage the administration, as I have time and again, to better communicate with the elected representatives of the people and with the people themselves. I appreciate you two coming today to provide information and coming to the emergency meeting of the Northeast Community Council as well. Because in the end, I want whatever we do to help our houseless neighbors to be successful for them and successful for the community. That is and has been my only focus and the focus of this committee, not trying to score political points. So I look forward to continuing this dialogue, as heated or as challenging as it may get. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open up final audience participation. I did see 3 hands, so if those 3 want to go ahead and line up. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Joe Seeley. I'm with 99+1. A little background on me. I spent about 21 years at the Bakery Fire Department. I retired in September. Started managing the Sullivan area shortly thereafter. Very active, hands-on management, 24 hours a day as needed. Since like this May and June 27th, we got a directive to start paring down the Sullivan population. I had a meeting with Chief Shawnee and Deputy Chief Montour. I explained to them that we're going to see an uptick in fires, we're going to see an uptick in violence, domestic violence, abuse, beatings, including death. We have witnessed all of those. Over the past 9 months, we have demonstrated that we are capable of operating a shelter with up to, I believe, don't quote me, but I think our highest number one night was 580. It's almost 600, well over 500 for months. My concern at this point in time is that we have been attempting to house people, and for various reasons, they're still at this Sullivan, some of which have returned. A lot of the units that are available, a lot of our people have been kicked out or evicted for various reasons, and they have no place else to live, so they come back to the Sullivan. We have picked, I'm going to say, all the low-hanging fruit, all the easily housed people are housed. The ones which remain have a high population of people with both mental and physical and behavioral health issues. We have 35 hours before 100 of these people are going to be on the streets of English. That's really all I have.
Thank you. Welcome.
Roger Branson, District 2 legal worker, long-term advocate for folks with mental health, and disproportionate number of folks I advocate for are both in homelessness and corrections. I have spent a little bit of time at Centennial Park recently too, and RAC is making a presence there. I do appreciate the sense of community and camaraderie that is springing up over there. And the sense of community amongst the campers is huge. The campers who have chosen to stay behind, tourists and whatnot that are coming through here, are really giving us a favor that I think are helping our folks to assimilate or to sense the community aspect of it. I would like to point out though that most of those sites are great for people with RVs. So there is a sewage dump station there, and if we need more restrooms, something like an RV where they could use and have water. Also, RVs come with their own cooking, kitchen, refrigeration, all that stuff. So at the most, even the ones with the tent campsites, the people who would be coming in there and would be coming in cars, there's not that many people that camp there without having a motive to get there and get from there. So for a lot of these folks, especially the ones that we are anticipating will start flowing in the next 24 to 36 hours, their situation is going to be very different than prior users of the park. But the bright side is that we're hoping for a renewed sense of collaboration and a renewed commitment to depoliticizing, if that is even possible, because these are human beings, and there are individuals who need a point where they have the opportunity to make the right reasons and to turn their lives around. And if we can't communicate to them that this is an opportunity to do that, if we can't put choices before them to make the right choices in life, can't put reasons before them to make the right choices, they will go on making their own choices for their own reasons. And those reasons are not good. Cautiously optimistic, the next 7 to 10 days are going to be critical for the community and all the community support and awareness of what folks are going through will be critical. And I thank everybody in advance and the administration for the work that is being done on the ground. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. And then after you're done with your testimony, I will adjourn the meeting. We'll be out of that.
Thank you, Chair. Nyla Williams. I'm here today, and I have the same feeling of sickness in my stomach that maybe some members of this body are feeling right now, and maybe some members of the community too. We're here in a completely self-prescribed pain that we've caused. The whole while taking money from all sides and harming the least well off. Martin versus City of Boise, that's what creates the case law under cruel and unusual punishment that disallows criminalizing behavior of humanity, homelessness, right? So went through the chair to the administration. When they're referring to illegal camping, it's not illegal camping, it's a human right. It's a human right to be able to go fish. It's a human right to be able to go collect water. It's a human right to be able to use the bathroom. Maybe we need to have some conversations with our community members to stop excluding the homeless from publicly accessible areas. Stop blocking bathrooms in restaurants, which is a violation of health code. Another thing that I would like answered was Spruce Bark beetle kill used in the area surrounding the Molten Fire. Also, I'm going to start to rattle stuff off here. I would like for a memorandum of understanding between Securitas and the city on this exact location to be provided for the citizens. I think that's important. Exactly what rights will be violated with these people on a daily basis when you say you're going to count them as if they're cattle or widgets? What happens if they don't want to be counted? Are you going to go in their tents and check to make sure they're complying with no alcohol? Violating their Fourth Amendment? I don't think you could have picked a worse location. Right? When I was sitting home this week and I'm like, why did they pick that one? Because you wanted to pick the worst location possible. There's no other understanding. And I hear members of the public that are getting paid by the city in the back laughing and scoffing at the discomfort of their fellow human beings. People that took checks. They're up here talking about how they know how to run the Sullivan Arena because assaults have happened there, because rapes have happened there. How much other stuff are you covering up? Don't forget your legislative oversight and the power of subpoena too. Privileged information, my butt. If she's communicating about city business, that's public information.
Thank you. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
Yes. Right back.